My name is Abed. I'm the founder and CEO of Sociata. We are the first creator marketing company in this region. And I'm here to bring you great news on how you as creators and as advertisers are going to grow on social in the next wave. Stay tuned.
It's great to have you in our pop-up studio, Abed. I'd like to ask you, on the spot, what's new in the creative marketing space, considering the amount of technology disruption that is coming in into the whole ecosystem in the recent, let's say, 1.5 years?
A great development. I've been in this space for 10 years, and I've seen a lot of changes occur. In the past, I would go to an advertiser, and I would tell them, you need to work with a lot of people. You need to really collaborate with a lot of people to really dominate social. You need a lot of third parties to talk about you to succeed. You can't be just talking about yourself as a brand, right? And I would go to social platforms and I'm like, how come you're not offering creator marketing solutions? How come you're not doing that? And I was just like talking to myself. Nobody would listen. This year, what's very interesting is that a lot of the platforms have started offering a lot of creator-led solutions to advertisers, whereby they tell them, go work with a creator to produce a piece of content, and now that piece of content is your ad. It's no longer go produce a TVC and then reformat it to social, and then bring it to social and boost it with ads to interrupt people. They're telling them, work with creators, and then promote that piece of content on their own account. That's a massive change.
That's a massive change. I agree with you. I have an additional question to actually to go a little bit deeper on that. Do you think the AI in this case is raising the bar for creators, or does it make sort of average go faster? And how do creators win against the speed and what they need to deliver within a certain period of time now? Yeah.
AI's place is in a lot of places, right? It's in the algorithm, in deciding what content to send to whom. It's in the workflows of helping creators create content. It's also being used in the creative space where you're building AI-based figures to communicate. So it really depends on what aspect we're talking about. But when you say against, I'm not totally with you on that. I think AI is the best co-pilot for creators. It's gonna, very much enhance their workflows in order to be able to create faster and better. And so I believe it's a great ally. And I'm the one. I'm more on the side of people in the future, whereby if we imagine that social platform in the future to become predominantly dominated by creators and AI figures, inevitably people are going to lean more towards the authentic, real human. In fact, as part of the advertising business group, it's a industry body that I'm part of, and one of our partners is Google in it, and we've done a consumer survey that basically have asked consumers, if you see a piece of content that has done basically by AI, or another one by a human, which one are you more likely to buy? And the response was a human. I trust a human far more, right? So I'm not, at all for the picture that AI is going to take our jobs. It's going to certainly change a lot of aspects, change how we do things. But it's going to be a tool that's going to unlock probably the best opportunities for creators, inevitably.
So what part of creativity do you think should stay with a human? Considering that AI can generate ideas and participate in creating the visual aspect of the creative work, but what needs to stay with a human?
I'll talk about it from an advertising perspective. The creative idea always rests upon an insight, right? If I want to do an ad in Saudi Arabia, okay, and I need as a human to understand how the person in Riyadh thinks versus how the person in Jeddah thinks versus how the person in Khobar thinks, which are completely different beings, right? They have different cultural backgrounds, and so communicating to them is quite different. I can't imagine an AI understanding this local insight as much as a human who can bring that through a lot of the oral tradition that has passed on from generation to generation, right? So from a creative perspective, really the insight is always going to come from a human, right? And the human needs to feed the AI with that insight in order to create, on top of it. Where the AI is going to play a big role, I think, is in inspiring us in taking different directions of a story, maybe taking a different angle, right? But the idea itself, right, and its originality, for it to stand out in a future dominated by AI content, has to inevitably be human. It has to somehow showcase that side of us that, that talks to the hunch of the other person, right? If I talk to you right now and I'm sounding 100% rational, get an AI to talk to you it's gonna be way more rational than me.
That's true.
It's gonna beat me,
Yeah.
right? But if I wanna connect with you and you're gonna look at me and say, I like this guy. I don't know why, but I like this guy. There's this X factor we call in talent development, right? When in Hollywood, when you want to go spot a star, right? You go to these bars. You want to, let's say, music, right? And you want to spot the next artist. You go to a bar and you'll be like, that band has something. I don't know what it is, but it has something, right? I'm not sure AI is going to be able to detect that, right? It's that hunch.
Of course not.
That is what we call the X factor that really separates humans or the elites from the rest of us.
No, but you're right. Connection, you cannot connect with the help. Or at least it's not going to be the right connection. Definitely, it's going to be an imaginative connection, probably when it comes to AI. So I'd like to ask you something about attention monetization or attention economy. Let's say, what is the most misunderstood metric in the attention economy? What do you think? I mean, you can name a few metrics of how attention is monetized, and what is the most misunderstood or missed or misinterpreted?
I mean, in a world where we're bombarded with content, right, and the next piece of content is just a flip of a finger away.
Yeah.
We glorify views and engagement,
yeah.
right? And one thing we learned, we have a technology platform that, fortunately, we collect a lot of data from the social platforms. So we connect our technology to a lot of their APIs to understand who's influencing who, and in what level, and how strong is that bond, that connection, right? The way what we learned inevitably was that the ultimate metric that counts that there is a connection is how much I've viewed from a piece of content, not so much the number of views, not so much the followers that I have. All of that is useless, right? But it's so much, how much did that creator or a person who produced that piece of content capture, among my time, right? So I have finite time. So really, the attention is really measured by how much you were able to take from me when it comes to watching your content. That's really the most important. And everything that has been misunderstood across the years has been followers, generic number of views that really mean nothing when you look at them, in isolation of everything else.
Why do the brands still struggle to get, the right creators or the right influencers for their brand to advertise their product? I mean, there's a certain gap between what advertisers can offer from influencer marketing perspective to the brands, and how do we cover that gap? And the gap is primarily how to connect a brand with the right creator, let's say.
I mean, in the past, the way they would select a creator is, yeah, I've heard of that creator. I've seen that creator. I like them. Highly subjective, right? If it's not about you as a marketing manager whether you like that creator or not, whether your audience likes them or not. Your opinion does not matter, right? So, and the process to do that, if you're only relying on what you've seen, then you're going to be quite limited. You're only going to be you're going to be limited to work with those known creators, those bigger ones. And that's why these bigger ones were able to initially get a lot of that advertising share among the creator economy. However, as tools start to emerge, and certainly one of our tools has been very useful to advertisers in the region, they were able to utilize a data-driven approach to understand the right creators. And when I say a right creator, it can be a creator with 1 million followers, and it can be a creator with 1,000 followers. I'll give you an example. A creator with 1,000 followers who produces a very bad publicity for a brand, their content gets screenshotted and gets distributed all over the world. So even a person with 1,000 followers can be as influential in taking down a brand as somebody with 1 million followers, right? So in order for me as an advertiser to uncover all of these, I need tech tools. tech tools that help me understand, does this creator speaking to the right audience? Is that audience really for me as an advertiser? Do they have the right performance? And also performance, we just spoke about, attention metric, right? How do I understand whether that performance is good or not, right? We came up with a methodology and a score we call the I-score. The beauty of it is that it's a benchmark score, whereby a creator, for me to really understand whether those views are actually good or this engagement stuff is actually good, I have to actually compare that creator to other people like them. And that's what the I-score does. It really compares these people among each other. Those who have the best views and the best engagement score 10 over 10, right? So the performance metrics. So first, right audience. Second, the right performance. Third, the right persona. Do they embody the persona of my customers? Does this creator really, their persona is going to be very typically like the persona of my customer who buys my product? They have to be representative because people imitate each other and people imitate people who are similar, right? So that's the third one. And the fourth one is their content very well made to really be able to introduce my brand? Is it brand safe? Is it actually, free from, a lot of the controversies or, the topics that the brands don't want to align with?
Yeah.
Right? So these are the four things that advertisers really have to look for. And if they do that well, they're able to unlock an army of people who they can work with, when they do a campaign.
But do you think the ecosystem is actually evolving with the amount of creators coming into the game, let's say, and with, let's say, YouTube gaining the power? Do you think this advertising ecosystem is moving towards that, or does it still use the outdated metrics of, let's say, views, viewship, some that we call vanity metrics? So what's your take on that?
Obviously, we're not there yet, right? We still use vanity metrics. But the beauty is, in the past, it was, us and a few other agencies who are basically trying to proclaim and trying to educate the market. It wasn't enough, right? On social platforms, the brands are going to listen to the social platforms. The beauty is, now that social platforms are giving more attention to creators, they're going to basically encourage and educate on these standards better than, not better, more than anyone else. Because they are the first really influential level on the brands. They're the ones who actually influence the brands and the decision makers. If Meta is saying this is the standard, then the brands are going to say, yeah, that's the standard, right? So as we're seeing more and more of these products, social platforms are offering nowadays, that will help advertisers understand, and move beyond vanity metrics. Really to move, actually to attention metrics that make a difference.
I understand.
But I wanna, part of the question also, I understand that with a lot of creators rising, right, they need an income, right? The challenge that we have is that the pie is still small. Still, the majority of social spending is gone to basically create a brand asset and interrupt people, right? I boost that brand asset to interrupt people, right? You watch every 2 pieces of content, you get an ad that's interrupting you, right? As the shift happens towards more creator-led products, more creators are going to make money, right?
Hopefully.
And we look at TikTok, right? TikTok, for example, has a product called TikTok One that enables anyone, even with 500 followers, to be able to create content and work with an advertiser. That's amazing. In fact, we run an education program for TikTok with about 1,000 creators. And most of them today are monetizing. They're actually making money, even though they haven't still built enough following for them to be visible. But they do great content. Yeah. They're able to really work with an advertiser, to be able to generate conversions, for example, generate downloads for an app, right?
Yeah.
So the shift is inevitably happening. And the pie of how much is being spent on creators is certainly growing, and it will not stop. My view is that at least 40% of the social spending to go to creators. It's a big claim, right? It's a very bold claim. But if we just compare YouTube, half of their advertising goes to the people who create the content.
Yeah.
Why would Meta be different? Why would TikTok be different? Why would Snap be different? Right? So inevitably, that equitability has to happen on the other platforms as well. But it's just a question of time.
They will probably adjust their models, because YouTube is primarily monetizing the long form content, and I think that's the difference. So that's why the watch time is the most important metric for YouTube. Can you achieve something like that on the short form platforms like TikTok and Instagram you've mentioned now? I think they need to encourage different metrics like reshare, let's say, or staying on the page rather than scrolling, because now the short form content platforms are all created to scroll. I mean, the more you scroll, sort of the better likes and views you get. But the long form on YouTube is sort of monetized differently, right? So probably you're right. I mean, it will move towards that, but long form makes a difference. I think in this space, just to add to what you've just said. Just to wrap up this short interview, I'd like to ask you, what would you like the media digital audience stay with after listening to this conversation? So the audience that been watching to you here, and the audience that will see you on YouTube and LinkedIn after they watch this conversation, what do you want them to stay with? 2-3 takeaways.
One only. Focus on the word social in social media. Social is where people are, mingling with each other. They're influencing each other, right? As an advertiser, you have to be there. That's where the party is.
Yeah.
And as a creator, start creating content. Or anyone who's aspiring to create content, do it now. Because the opportunity, we're really just starting when it comes to monetizing those audiences that we built, right? So my takeaway is do more of what we do today, right? If I'm a creator, trust that this channel is gonna eventually become your future income. We're inevitably heading there. And as an advertiser, go where the party is. If people are creating the content, work with people to influence consumers.
That's true. Yeah.
It's really as simple as that. That's the major takeaway I would want to give your audience.
That's amazing, and thank you so much. It's been great having you at the pop-up studio and also at the Digital Media Forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.